As I record this one for you, it is just over a day since I learned of the passing of my brother and my friend and a member of the greater fraternity of pro wrestling, Alexander Dean. And lately, wrestling has had more than its share of tragic deaths. People of international stature like Bray Wyatt, who is gone far too young, my dear friend Lovebug, who passed away just a little over a month ago now, legends like Terry Funk, and now most recently, Alexander Dean, my friend Dean. And what I've been feeling, of course, is sadness that my friend is gone. It's shock over him being gone so young. I feel angry about the way some people in wrestling treated him. I feel guilty about not staying in touch more consistently with Dean, especially these last couple of months. And we never had the chance to do our singles match. We talked about it all the time and we never got a chance to do it. But the main way in which I got to interact with Dean over the years was through training. It didn't matter where I was on earth. If I was teaching a seminar in the middle of Spain, I would walk on to teach my class and there would be Dean, fresh off a flight from Dublin. If I was teaching a seminar in New Orleans, Louisiana, I would walk on and there would be Dean, fresh off a flight from Dublin. He had a voracious appetite and passion for wrestling, which was contagious. And he showed up at so many of my seminars, I got in the habit of having to dig really deep into my own bag of tricks to make sure I could keep teaching him something new because he'd come to so many of them. So that the record is always straight on my brother Alexander Dean, he was a great guy. He had a super funny sense of humor, and he always wanted to leave wrestling a little bit better than how he found it. Those of us who got to know him, we know him as the guy who would give you the socks off his feet if it would make things better for you. Something he really did on more than one occasion. And that brings me to today's video. Those of you who've been with me for a very long time will no doubt remember this one because there are very few videos on the Till We Make It channel that have someone other than yours truly in them. And this is one of them. Alexander Dean was kind enough to make a contribution to the entire Till We Make It tribe, and I'm going to share it with you in just a moment. But some important context. Back in the spring of 2020, a certain global health crisis overtook us all. And as quarantining began, it meant that gyms were closed, wrestling schools were closed, and in the weeks and months to follow, everybody kind of collectively lost their minds. And while I was at home looking for a way that I could remain physically active, I reached out to my friend Dean and asked him if he would put together a workout for me that I could do at home. And I asked him not just because he's a great professional wrestler, but because Dean was also a personal trainer. And because he was the guy he was, of course, he obliged. He put something together, which I still do to this day, and I'm going to share it with you in just a moment. In this way, no surprise, Dean just keeps on giving back to wrestling. He always wanted to leave wrestling a better place than how he found it, and he still is. Miss you, brother.
Hi guys, my name is Dean. I'm a professional wrestler performing under the name Alexander Dean. I've been a professional wrestler since 2004. I've also been a personal trainer since 2012. And throughout the course of my two careers, I've accrued some knowledge which I think is beneficial for you guys when it comes to preparing your bodies for the rigors of professional wrestling. And if you're watching this and you're not a professional wrestler, just the rigors of everyday life. So what I have next up here is a video detailing some warm-up exercises, which I think will be beneficial for you when it comes to staying active at home during quarantine times. And there's a couple of exercises here for core, for glutes, for shoulder mobility, and for hip mobility, as well as some movements that I think are particularly important for professional wrestlers in general to master. There's a couple of different options for each of these movements, basically allowing you to pick and choose which ones you can do according to either your skill level or what equipment you have available to you. So check out the following video and I'll tell you how to piece it together in just a moment. Okay, so our first task is activating our core. The first option I'm going to give you is a dead bug. You're going to drive your lower back into the floor, maintain core pressure while you reach your right hand and your left foot towards the floor. If you've mastered that, you can move on to the hollow rock. Again, you're going to maintain pressure in your core. You're going to allow yourself to move. However, you want to keep the position of your hips and your shoulders the same throughout. If you've mastered the hollow rock, you can do a hollow band pull apart to make things a little bit more interesting. Again, maintain core pressure. This time activating the upper back musculature with that band pull apart. Finally, if you find all that a little bit too easy, broomstick Houdinis are the next step onwards. Again, you're looking for some good rounding of the lumbar spine. You want to exhale out all your air as you reach your broomstick over your feet and try and keep your knees as close together as possible. We're then going to move on to engaging the glutes. Level 1 here is a single leg glute bridge. If you have no equipment at all, this is a perfectly acceptable way to engage the glutes. If you can use your couch or a chair, you can add more range of motion by doing an elevated glute bridge. And finally, if you want to add a little bit of instability, make things a bit more challenging, a foam roller glute bridge will engage the hamstring that little bit more. Moving on to the shoulders, the prone Y handcuff is a great starter exercise if you have no equipment. Hands start behind the head, keep them as high off the floor as possible, and then down into the handcuff position. If you have a band at your disposal, prone band dislocates are an excellent progression. Take a Y position on a band, reach up and over the back, bring it down to the hips. The closer you hold the hands together in this exercise, the more difficult it becomes. Next up, we have a prone Y press. We're going to raise the dowel or broomstick as high off the floor as possible, mimic a behind the neck overhead press, and attempt to keep our shoulder blades pinned together at the back of our rib cage. Following on from this, we're going to look at scapular rhythm and pressing. So we're going to begin with a yoga push-up. Here, we start in the push-up position. We finish in a downward facing dog. We're thinking about driving our hands up above our head, similar to how we post for body slam or send somebody over for a back body drop. The inverse then of a yoga push-up is a crab extension. While I'm not amazing at this exercise, it's something that I'm still working on. We're looking to extend the hips and extend the shoulders at the same time, looking at the ceiling at the top of every rep. Some options then for hip mobility. We've got a shin box get up. Here we try and keep our hands off the floor, although you can use your hands as a post if you need to. And finally, an excellent drill which I've borrowed from amateur and catch wrestling, a sit out with a thoracic bridge. Stay on your toes, start off in the bear position, kick your right foot through to your left side, do not let your knees touch the floor, and come up into a one arm bridge. Great combination of shoulder and hip mobility here. So, having watched that video, I'm going to give you two options on how to incorporate those movements into a warm-up. Option 1 is to build a simple circuit. What you're going to do is you're going to pick one or two of those exercises from each of those categories, one core, one glute, one shoulder, one hip mobility exercise, or more than one of each. From there, you're going to run through them circuit style, A to D, E or F. You're going to take no more than 90 seconds of rest in between each one, and you're going to go for somewhere in the region of 4 or maybe 5 sets. Option 2 then, you're going to set a timer somewhere in the region of 12 to 20 minutes. From there, you're going to go through those exercises, as we said before, A to D or E or F, how many ever you have, and you're going to try and do as many laps of that circuit in the time that you've given yourself. So that will be what's called an AMRAP, as many rounds as possible. The key here is to go for movement quality. So you don't want to rush any of these movements. You want to take your time, making sure that you get full range of motion, especially in things like hip extensions and shoulder mobility exercises.